PHP variables and constants. Now we know that variables are containers for storing information, right? So in PHP, a variable start with the dollar sign, right? Start with the dollar sign followed by the name of the variable. Now in this case, this is the variable name. So I can assign numeric values, I can assign string values, right? For example, now let's say, now in this case I assign a numeric value. So I can have another example, say, so in this example, I will show you W3 school example. As you can see in this example, in this particular code, um, I have assigned a string variable. So if I execute it, it looks like this. And then 5 and then 10 plus 5. So that's how we echo. Now if we echo the first one, dollar $txt, this is what it looks like. Then I'm echoing dollar $x, so it looks like this, and echoing dollar $y, it looks like this, right? So so remember, when you're declaring a variable, you need to use the dollar sign, right? um, so when you assign the text value to a variable, make sure you put here, right? Put the quotes around the value, right? So unlike with the other programming languages, PHP has no command for declaring the variable, right? We are not declaring the variable. It created the moment you first assign a value to it. Okay, so there are no such declaration like other programming language. Okay, so in this case, you can see we are assigning a string value. Here we are assigning a numeric value, right? Now think a variable as containers for storing the data, right? Um, so in PHP, variables can have short names like x and y or $txt, or more descriptive names like age, total volume, etc., etc. So the rules of PHP variable is it should be start with a dollar sign followed by the variable name. A variable name must start with a letter or the underscore character, right? Variable name cannot start with any number, right? And a variable name can only contain alphanumeric characters and underscores, right? So A to Z, or 0 to 9, and underscore characters, right? And the other important thing is variable names are case sensitive. It's case sensitive, right? So for example, if I write simple or capital X here, or capital let's say capital A here, and then I have another variable name later on, dollar $a equals say 10, right? So these two are two different variables, right? Two different variables. So here I have not, actually I can echo it later, and then you will see that it should be two different variables, right? um, Now usually we use echo statements to output the data to the screen, right? Now here in this case you can see since I haven't output the dollar $a simple, it will not going to show it, right? um, right, so that's about it. Now in this case you can see I am recording now in this case in of parameters. I'm passing bunch of parameters and recording it back. Now this is the first one, and then remember I can use either here uh, uh, comma, or I can use a dot sign here, right? So this is a one parameter, there's another one, this is the third one. Okay, so I can use string concatenation symbol to output a um, number of parameter or number of outputs like this. Okay, uh, else so yeah, so and the other important thing is regarding PHP. PHP is a loosely typed language, right? Uh, so because we did not have to tell PHP which data type the variable is, PHP automatically associate the data type to the variable, right? In this case, one, right? Depending on its value, right? Since the data types are not set in the strict sense, you can do things like adding a string to an integer without causing any error, right? But in PHP 7, there is a type declarations actually added, right? That gives an option to specify the data type expected when we declaring a function, and by enabling the strict requirement it will throw a fatal error on a type mismatch, right? So we'll probably come to that later on, how we going to strict and non-strict requirements later on. So again here there is a small PHP script echoing some variable. Now here you can see here there is a for function. It goes from starting from 1 and increment by 1 up to 7. Here I am echoing um, variable here as a part of a heading or heading string uh, HTML code. Um, but you need to be very careful when we use the quotes, as I mentioned before. Uh, right. So in this case, um, this code also will get used because as we specify it correctly, right? Right. So when it comes to variables and constants, now let's go through this. Now, values stored in a computer memory are called the variables, or sometimes you can call constants, right? So the data contained in variables or constants are classified into categories known as a data type. So we can have different data types, right? Okay. The name you assign to a variable is called an identifier, right? So early example, you can see that I have I, or I can have X or Y, right? This is called identifiers, right? So as mentioned before, these are the rules in when you're declaring the variable. It must be some beginning with the dollar sign, can include the letters and the numbers or underscores, but cannot start with the number. You can't have any spaces, cannot include spaces, and also very importantly it's a case sensitive. Variable names are case sensitive, right? So this is a normal suggested variable specification, right? I can use a camel head style like this, or I can use the underscore. Okay. um, so in this case you can see there are two variables, but same name, but how we write it is different, right? Here is the simple F, here is the capital F. So these are two variables, right? It's not the same variable, it's a two identifiers, right? Remember PHP is case sensitive, right? um, So specifying and creating a variable name is called declaring the variable, right? When we are assigning the first value to a variable is called initializing the variable, right? Now remember, we example, we assign value to x, assign value to I, assign value to some other variables, right? It's called initializing the variable, right? So in PHP you must declare and initialize a variable in the same statement, right? So here we assign a value, then it actually declare and initialize it, and it recognize, aha, this variable is a numeric type of variable or string type of variable, etc., etc. So you can later change the variable value, right? You can assign a new value to the variable. uh, Variables, now the data types of variable or the identifiers, it depends on the data type of the value assigned to it, right? Now in this case you can see in this variable I have assigned a string type of data, and then here I use a numeric with decimal point or the whole number, or logical operator like true or false, right? So I can actually do like that, right? So use meaningful names, right? That's totally okay. So I can even combine numeric and numeric and text values. That's perfectly okay. Alphanumeric values, that should be okay. So in order to output the content of the variable, we need to use echo statement, right? Something like this, okay? So we don't need to use any double quotes when you echoing the variable value back to the browser.